Not too long ago, from writing the story, I had a major incident that inspired me to record it. Now, in the other incident in my old house, in Virginia, I mentioned I've never felt anything that would make me believe there's a ghost in my house, in my new house up in Massachusetts. But that changed, however. Now, let me start with the little stuff. Stuff I just ignored. I moved into my house, going on 5 years, starting 2008. When I feel alone and a dark room is nearby, I always feel a strong, malevolent presence radiating from it. It feels like I'm being stared at. The presence gets extremely strong if I am not near a light. So strong that it makes me want to scream if I stay in it too long. I experienced that when I went downstairs during the night for a drink and didn't turn on the foyer light because it shines up the stairs and might bother my family. Sometimes randomly at night, my dogs get very upset and go crazy. These dogs all bark, but they bark at the most unnatural disturbances. They will not bark if one of the family goes down, even in pitch black. They won't bark if our cat wakes them up. They can literally tell if it's something normally in the house causing it. One night, I heard what sounded like the middle of a wolf's howl in the bathroom. And if you really need to know, I was getting a tissue. But back to the point at hand, it was like a continuous middle of a wolf's howl. Now I stood there listening to that for a minute, and then went back to my room. The sound faded to almost nothing. But here's where it scared the living heck out of me. The sound got louder again. Now at this point I was freaked out, so I went back into the bathroom, and it quieted down to almost nothing again. But once again, after a minute or so, it got louder. At this point, I had had enough, so I turned up my headphones to block out the noise. The feelings of malevolence have been a bit stronger during the night afterwards. But I have been frightened away from going downstairs during the night, which never previously happened. It's mostly because I know I won't be able to handle it. You can think of it as, I feel like I used to expect always in pitch black normally. And I don't want to find out what that presence feels like in pitch black. The only other incident is one night my sister's printer started making very strange noises, all on its own. The computer was off. My sister wasn't even in the house, she was at camp. But the printer was making some really odd noises. It did the noise every 30 seconds or so around that. At first I thought someone was in the hall because it sounded like a door. But after the 20th door or so, I finally got sick of it and checked out to see who was out there, only to discover it was a printer. I cannot answer why the printer did what it did, and works fine for the record. And it's fairly new. I'm a CNA in a nursing home. I've only worked here for a year. I've come to learn that the facility was an old tuberculosis hospital for children. The building is over 100 years old. One night, I was working the night shift, and I left the apartment room into the hallway. I saw something move in the corner of my eye. I turned my head and saw a man in black walking into the dining room. The nurse saw me looking down the hall and asked me what I was doing. I told her what I saw and she brushed it off. She told me that everyone sees him and are used to him. I have never seen a ghost before, but I saw him clear as day. He had a black long coat, a black hat, and dress shoes. Recently, a dietary aide saw him in our basement. He thought he was a lost family member, but disappeared when he reached the end of the hallway. At work now, I look for him sometimes at the end of hallways. I'm scared, but more curious. On the other side of the facility, the residents see children in the hallway, and they also see the man in black as well. Every shift, I don't know what is going to happen. The last time I was at work, I was in the bathroom with a patient and I heard a knock on the door. I thought it was the nurse. I called out for her to come in, but no one responded. I looked in the hallway and there was no one there. The nurse was at the nurse's station doing her notes. That scared me at the point that I questioned myself. Am I going crazy? The building is so old and has seen so much death. Elderly and the young. It would only make sense that there is a presence there. When I was a young boy, around 7 or 8 years old, I shared a bunk bed with my older brother. He slept on the top, and I slept on the bottom. My room was about the size of a walk-in closet with a small closet of its own in the very left-hand corner of the room. Vaguely do I remember which month of the year this started occurring, but I vividly do remember the events that took place. One night, I climbed into my bed after playing video games out in our living room. As my brother was fast asleep as always, I stuck wide awake, staring off into space. After a while of thoughts running dry in my mind, I started to notice something in my closet. As the figure came out of the closet, I was speechless in fear and I felt paralyzed. This figure was about 5'11" and had the blackest robe of any I've ever seen. Its face, you can barely see, but the bottom was a vague light yellow color. I did not want to move nor draw attention to myself, but I was sure it knew I was there. It slowly walked itself out of my closet and towards the side edge of my bed. I did not face toward, but away, and there it stood. I slowly tried to pull the covers over my frozen face to try to believe it was not real, but still, I could not find it in myself to sleep. The next day, I was in elementary school cafeteria where I began to tell one of my friends about the figure I saw. The so-called friend of mine gabbed to a teacher, and she told me to stop telling scary things and that if I was scared to shine a light on the figure because it wasn't real. Being trembled in fear of the shadow figure, I thought the teacher must be mad to think I would take a light to this thing. For the next few weeks, this all continued on with myself being filled with fear until I could find myself asleep. This black-robed figure was always approaching the side of my bed to stand there, patiently, as if to mock me, saying, "I will do nothing." In those few weeks, one of the nights my older cousin slept over. We set up his bed on the far edge of my bunk. That night, as he slept, the shadow came out of my closet and stood next to him for about 20 minutes. After those minutes, once again it stood next to my bed. I never did figure out what this shadow was to this day, but now I have a fiance and we share this room. I have told her of my story. Even now to this day I feel as if I'm being watched from my closet sometimes. Or if I go out in the nighttime into my kitchen to get a drink or something, I feel as if something is watching me. So I hurry back into my room as if I'm being chased. My fiance has laid on the ground near my closet while doing some homework and felt something was watching her from there, or as if something was wrong. So she moved away from it. Now, recently, last night, I woke up in the early morning of around 3 to 4 a.m. with seeing some figure near my TV. So I quickly went back to sleep. I need help or guidance on what this is. My name is Logan, and I'm a first-year college student at Boston University. I live with my parents in the backwoods of Manson, Massachusetts, deep in the forest off a dirt road with no streetlights for miles. All of my friends love coming to my house to have parties and not have to worry about the police showing up. Also, everyone loves the spooky atmosphere of my place. My friends and I would love hanging out outside. I was going out with this girl named Heather. She always really loved playing with the Ouija board and asked all types of questions. One night, the Ouija board started talking really violently to Heather and started swearing at her. She started to cry really deep and loud. I was drinking beer with my buds and I saw her face. It was white as snow. I kicked the board to the fire pit and yelled out I was tired of this Ouija crap. As the board burned, I heard a loud hissing sound. I kept jabbing it with a branch, and it took forever for the moon symbol to catch fire. I spat on the Ouija board ashes, and I realize now that I must have been a little buzzed or just crazy because I never have gotten that angry before. From that moment on, my life has never been the same. I hear footsteps at night. My appliances either switch on suddenly when no one has touched them, or go missing to later be found in my closet or bathtub. I see different sized shadows out of the corners of my eyes and get phone calls that sound all distorted with deep voices in the background speaking a strange language. This is only the beginning of my problems. Heather started having bad nightmares when she stayed over at my house, and I began having them too. I once even had a friend get grabbed while he was on the toilet and ran out of the bathroom screaming. I found out that the Ouija board was very old and had been given to Heather as a gift when she was in her early teens. I did some research and found out that the board was bought in Salem, Massachusetts, from a lady who claimed to be a witch who used it often before she ended up giving it to Heather. I asked Heather how she could play with something that might have been used in demonic rituals or things of that nature. She never gave me a good answer. She thought everything was fun and games until the night she was crying. Heather and I broke up not so long after that, but my life never stopped getting worse and worse. I have to stop for now because my computer keeps freezing while I'm typing this out. I'll write more at another time. If there's anyone that can help or understand what I'm going through, please write me or leave me a comment. I'm willing to take any advice I can get. Thank you. I just wanted to post another incident that happened to me when I was much younger. I don't know how many people are from the area I grew up in, the town of Westwood, Massachusetts, which is right next to the town of Dover, Massachusetts. In fact, we lived less than a mile from the Dover dump. I don't know how many people might have heard or remembered stories that were circulating back in the 70s about a creature that was named the Dover Demon. This creature supposedly looked something like a large dog or coyote, if I remember correctly, and two things that distinguished it were its huge red eyes and its ability to stand on its hind legs like a bear. While coming home one night, both myself and my brother saw something on the road which was very disquieting to us. We had been over to see my mother's aunt, and they had been telling us stories about the wee people over in Ireland, which might have gotten our imagination stirred up, but we were riding in the back of our parents' station wagon when we both thought we saw something come out of the woods and into the street. Whatever it was seemed to have large red eyes and was running like a dog or a coyote might run. But whatever it was seemed abnormally fast, almost keeping up with the car. We did seem to finally outrun whatever it was, but when we got home, the two of us ran into the house and got the door closed as quick as possible. Like I said, it could have just been our overactive imaginations, or it could have been some kind of wild animal. There are a lot in the forest in that area, but I was just wondering if anyone else had seen anything like the Dover Demon or remember any incidents involving it. Thanks. That was Stories from Massachusetts. I knew there was going to be some creepy ones, but that Ouija board story, I was just like, no, you never burn a Ouija board before you close it. No. So he got himself done screwed after he burnt that Ouija board. Oh my goodness. And that thing, the Dover Demon, sounds kind of like the Chupacabra, but maybe it's different. Have any of you heard of it? Because I have never heard of it before then. Before I just read this, I was like, really? There's a thing? I mean, I guess, every state has their urban legends and whatnot. But let me know, ghouls, especially the ones of you who live in Massachusetts, is like the Dover Demon still like a real thing? Because this person who wrote that story said it was the 70s, so it's been a long while since then. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, ghouls. Secret word for today. We haven't had a secret word in a while. Vans. Like the shoes Vans, or maybe like a van. I don't know. Just use the word van somewhere in the comments, and I will know that you made it all the way back here to the end of my rambly rambles. But as always, my last video will be on the top left. My next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.